How's it going, everybody? My name is Austin, and you can find my stuff at apostlesaddict.com, and that's the Christ-centered clothing line that we will be doing the raffle with as well. Social-wise, right now, all you can find for me is going to be on Faithful Dialogue, so you can catch me right here, and I am with my good friend Ryan.
Hey everybody, my name is Ryan, and you can find all of my personal stuff over at aiiw.org. I actually have that wrong on my own screen. Um, so it's aiiw.org. And yeah, so thank you for joining us today. We have another wonderful episode. I think this is going to be our ninth for June 18th. And what do we got on
Woohoo!
tap for today, Austin?
Today, because it's Father's Day, I think it's going to be a good idea that we just talk about, fatherhood and just dads in general. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm personally I'm very thankful for my father. I had a wonderful example growing up as a kid. So here, let me pull up a picture of him. But my dad was basically Ned Flanders. um, and so
I like the I like the
unf-
visual you just gave my mind.
yeah. So can you see my? Let me see if I can switch over here so that the viewers can see. That's my father.
Nice.
um,
Was that tilapia? What is he holding up there?
it's a joke. Because he
Okay.
was a big fisherman, and I think that's one of those like talking wall mounted fish that somebody
Oh, nice.
wrapped, and it was a joke, probably at like a church event. But
Nice.
I used this picture on my timeline today on my own Twitter. Just because it's such a good example of who he was as a person. Like I said, he literally was the embodiment of Ned Flanders, like all the good parts of him, including the mustache. Um, and he was just a wonderful and kind man. And unfortunately, he tied his battle with cancer. Back in
What kind of
20,
cancer did he have?
he had a melanoma, so a skin cancer that
Oh,
ultimately spread to a bunch of his organs, including his brain. Unfortunately, so
do you
that was
know if it
tough.
was like on his arm or do you know where
Uh,
that was?
I believe the first amount of it that he knew of was in his like thigh.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not sure if that's exactly where it started or not. I can't remember. This was about a decade ago that he passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, that happens. That's life. I'm so incredibly blessed that he was a man of faith and just a wonderful
Hey, he knew
Christian.
the Lord. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
And so, I've been blessed to be in church almost every Sunday of my life because he started it off that way, and him and my mom and just their faithfulness has been a huge blessing in my life. And so, it's sad that he's gone. But I can be very thankful to God, and I can be more appreciative of God and what He is to everybody because of the example that my earthly dad set for me. And it's just and one of the best memories of my life, as sad as it was seeing his funeral and just the hundreds of people that showed up and had just been impacted by his life that I didn't even know. He went off and he was at work, from 9 to 5, and I didn't get to see that part of his life at all. But to see those people from his office that came out that had such a huge impact just from him being a kind and compassionate, faithful Christian man, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, you get to see the legacy that he left behind being, a loving Christian, and it has an impact. You saw how effective he was being, a light on earth and a salt of the earth, you know what I mean? Because he had many people that felt some type of way when he left, including you. So,
Yep. So that was my dad, Richard. Very thankful for him, and I'm excited I'll get to see him again someday. But one of the things that brings us to is father. Did you want to say anything? Did you have anything to say? Or sorry, I don't want to get into kind of a discussion on fathers yet. I might have jumped the gun on that.
oh, what do you mean?
Just your, did you? So I kind of talked about my dad. I don't know if you wanted to say anything or. Uh,
So, so my dad didn't have a very prominent place in my life. I would have liked that to be the case. growing up without, having a male role model was tough, but then my mom's dad, Richard, actually filled that vacancy,
Aw.
and a lot of my a lot of my morals and values come from him, and I'm gonna have to like breathe as I'm talking about this because I can't wait to see him again. He was a Christian.
Mm-hmm. Aw. I'm
Yeah, and
sorry.
I'm really excited.
Does did is that you had a pretty big change with your name? Is that factored into that at all?
Yeah, so my mom's dad's last name was Itura, and my dad's last name was Caswell. And so my dad changed my last name to Caswell through some kind of like court order kind of thing.
Mm.
And it just I don't know. So my dad had like 4 or 5 brothers, or like I don't know. He was just there's tons of dudes on like in the Caswell family, and then those dudes had a bunch of sons. So like males were just flowing in that family, and then on the Itura side, there wasn't a whole lot of males, and so effectively, I was the only heir that came out of my grandpa because he had um 2 females, an adopted female, and then a son who had 2 daughters.
Mm.
And so I'm like the only male that came out of that. And he was just really stoked to find out that he had someone that would carry on his name. And when I was like 11 or 12, he was like, hey, it's your choice, totally up to you, but I'd be really like happy if you would take my name. And I was like, okay. And I like, I just like marinated on that for a while. And then I became an adult and I'm, getting to the point where I'm thinking about kids and like, now I'm like, yeah, that's starting to make sense. And he was the one that imbued his time and money and effort and values into me and was kind of a father to me. And the way I'm looking at it too is like my dad never honored my mom and married her. So like
Mm.
I don't want, I'm not like I'm still going to honor my father. Like I'm still going to seek out a relationship with him somehow, some way, but like I don't think my last name is especially since he has a bunch of heirs on his
Yeah.
side of the family. Um, like he had a son named Troy. Troy had a son named Cole, and Cole's an adult now. And so
Mm.
I hope that Cole has some sons too, and that bloodline's just going. And
Yeah.
so like right now I'm I'm the last thing for the Itera name, and so I just feel like I should take that name because he asked me and because it's fitting that I'm the only male heir and I just want that bloodline to continue. And even if I don't take the name, of course it continues anyway, but I just want to do that out of like to honor him in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I got. That's what I
Uh,
have.
that's beautiful. And I hadn't heard that full explanation. I didn't realize that at one point earlier in your life, your name had been, you said Itura before. Um.
So my mom married my sister's dad,
Mhm.
whose last name was Alvarez. So when I
Oh.
was born,
Okay.
my mom wrote on my birth certificate Alvarez, and she did that out of
Gotcha.
family unity. She just didn't want anybody to have a different last name.
Yeah.
But her
Okay.
actual maiden name is Itura, and so her father it was Itura, right? So
Sorry. Got it. Sorry about that. I didn't realize. Yeah. So
there's
I hadn't
another layer I
heard.
didn't explain.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. I didn't know. So, but yeah, that's just a beautiful story, and I'm glad that you get to honor the man that did kind of step up and take that role of a fatherly figure in your life, and even if other people didn't ever have a father in their life, they you can accept Jesus Christ as your savior, and through that relationship, you get to have a father, right? And so that's
Yeah.
that's why we're both doing this, kind of just to kind of wrap it around back into our faithful dialogues. Is even though I don't have my dad here on earth anymore, I have the hope and the security that I'm gonna get to be with him again and see him in heaven. And that's what we want for everybody. We want everybody to have that hope and that security for themselves and hopefully for their family as well. um
That's why it's so important if you recently became a Christian or if you've been a Christian for years, like if you meet somebody that you care about or God puts it on your heart to like preach the gospel to them, like you should do it, like, respond, because, like, you're gonna see those people in eternity, you're gonna be existing with them forever, and, like, especially your family, like, you can make that's your first ministry right there. Don't go preaching to the homeless if you don't preach to your kids and your cousins and your nephews first, right? Like,
Yep.
talk to your family. You're the
Amen.
closest thing to them, right? So,
Absolutely. Well, and you know the graphic that's up on the screen. There's a, Twitter account that I follow called Smash Baals. I really like that account. They do a great job. If you're on Twitter, I'd recommend going and following them. Um, but the graphic, what it shows is, you know, who comes first in the family to Christ. So if a child comes to Christ first in the family, there is a 3.5% chance, so 3.5 times out of 100, the rest of that family is going to come to Christ. The mom, the siblings, and ultimately the dad, right? If the mother comes to Christ first, there is a 17% chance that she's going to bring her kids and the dad along with her. But uh, what we see in this statistic right here is that there is a 93% chance that if the man comes to Christ, he brings along his wife and his children with him. And what this shows is just how important fathers are. And in my opinion, I think a lot of times in our culture today, we massively disregard or underestimate the importance that a father has in a person's life, in the family's life, okay? And just the impact that the faithfulness of a father can have on his children, on his wife, and on the community around him. And so that's one of the things that I got to see was the faithfulness that my dad had, and you know, using the time that God gave him wisely to prepare for my mother's future. She's well taken care of because of the things that he did to take care of her. You know, I've been taken care of by him in so many ways, and you know, men are just an incredibly important part of our society that sitcoms and everything else just belittle and try to minimize. And my opinion is that there are a lot of forces in this world that are working to degrade the strong nuclear family because of how easy it is to then prey on people and get them to go and do horribly ungodly things, especially in our society in America. So,
yeah, it's unfortunate. There's a battle for your soul, and you you are choosing a side. If you don't choose a side, Jesus said, "If you're not with me, you're against me." So you got to understand that there's the lover of your soul is knocking at your heart, saying, "I will prepare a place for you. Just put your faith in me."
amen. I think the other thing we should take heart to, if you are a father or you are a man in your family, what I would suggest is that you take a look at this statistic and take it to heart because it isn't just true of Christianity. This is true of every good thing that your family should be doing or every bad thing that your family is doing. The man is generally the one that leads you down that road. Okay. And so, as a man in your family, you have a lot of influence as to where the women and the children in your family go and what path that they take. Okay. So, what we as men need to understand is that we have that responsibility, and that even if you're already in a Christian household, if you're the man and you're sitting in front of your TV and swearing at it all day, that's going to have consequences for your wife and for your kids and the choices that they ultimately end up making and what they end up doing. Okay.
You just permitted that type of behavior because of your
Mm-hmm.
actions. You are ultimately leading your family, whether you realize it or not. So with
Exactly.
everything you do is now permissible. Everything you don't do is now a standard. So eh, it's
Mm-hmm.
tricky.
Yep. It's a huge burden and it's a responsibility that shouldn't be taken lightly, but should be taken joyfully and with a lot of humility and with a lot of prayer. Right. You know, I if you're a father, I'll be praying for you today. I hope that you do your best to raise your child in the ways that God has for them to go. So,
Honestly, like I just look at it like I want to have kids. So the mentality that I have is that my future kids and my wife are gonna look up to me. They're looking at me. God, even God, Jesus himself, they're all looking at me to like set an example and actually be a man of God. And so
mm-hmm.
I can sleep sound at night if I'm leaning on God because ultimately, if my family's leaning on me, they're just leaning on Jesus vicariously through me. So that's how I plan to operate in that situation. Because
Absolutely. Yep. And that's the way you should look at it is hopefully if they're leaning on you and you're leaning on God, then they're vicariously leaning on God too, right? And that's how it's set up, right? So we're supposed to submit ourselves to Christ, or if we have wives, so you have a wife, she's supposed to submit herself to you, right? And then the children are supposed to submit themselves to their parents as well. And so if that's all happening properly and if the man's properly pointed at Christ and submitting himself to him, then the whole rest of the family is going to fall in line and there's going to be a much more harmonious life for everybody in that family. And everybody's going to prosper when the man starts it off and sets that as the standard like you were saying.
yeah, you just the man is, traditionally the head of the household, and that holds a whole lot of
Mhm.
responsibility. You could say power and cue the Spider-Man line, right? But it's I don't know, but you should just embrace it and just know that beautiful people like your wife and kids are looking at you, and you can just fulfill that role of I'm going to be responsible and take care of them and make sure everything is done. And it's not something like I was kind of intimidated by that at first, but
Mhm.
now I'm just about it. Now I'm just like so excited to be that for her and my future kids that I don't have yet.
That's awesome. And of course, it is incredibly intimidating, right? It's a responsibility that a lot of boys and some men want to shirk and want to not want to think about. But it's incredibly important for our society, and the reason why we are seeing the societal decay that we see today is because it started with men abdicating their roles and not taking their roles seriously and being afraid of it. And so we need to face it head on, and we need to go forward with the strength that Christ is going to give us to be the best fathers that we can be. Hopefully, if you're a Christian, right? That's the goal.
Yeah, you can also have like a little conscious of fun with your conscience. Like if if you're not sure about stuff, you could just but like think of an action you are doing or not doing, and just a man does this. Should a man do this? And then your conscience will just let you know, no, a man shouldn't do this, or a man should do this, and hopefully that'll start to like let you know, like I should be taking responsibility here. I shouldn't be doing these types of things. Should a man do this? Like, and just understand that you're supposed to be the disciplined one that dies to self for your family. That's basically what a man is. So like, shouldn't be this doted on person that everybody submits their authority to. Like, I mean, it's hard to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. It's complicated, but definitely we're very happy for our. I'm happy that my father existed and that he did so many wonderful things, especially raising me. I'm glad that your father did what he had to do to get you to exist. I'm sorry that he didn't quite live up to what you wanted him to do elsewhere, but
No, and
that's
I'm still excited to seek out some kind of relationship with him. My
yeah.
parents had me a little bit later in age, so they're a little bit older, but I wanna seek him out. I wanna show him that I'm a carbon copy of him. Literally, I'm this only kid that looks exactly like him when he was like 20 something, right? So it's just interesting, dude. I know exactly where he lives. I'm gonna knock on his door. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, who am I?" And then I wonder what his reaction is gonna be because I I look exactly like him. It's so crazy. Everything, my facial hair, all of it.
Yeah.
So it's just, and I don't want to. One of those things too is like there's so much things that happened when I was younger I didn't like, and I just want to shove all that aside, forgive it all, and just move on. Like I just really want to like have a fresh relationship. Don't want to talk about the past. I just want to have my dad as my friend. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I don't
Yep.
want to talk about any of that stuff. Like it's
Well,
just gonna
and
bring up issues, right?
for my friends that have relationships with their parents but they aren't good, that's what I always say is just like you're an adult now, they're an adult, like you're more on an equal footing than you've ever been. At this point, if you're not willing to forgive him for what your dad may have done in the past, it's on you to figure out how to forgive him for that, right? and then
Yeah.
and then to work with him to fix that relationship, right? Like you're both adults. You don't have to be screaming and yelling at each other. You can talk about things rationally. You just need to work at it, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm so very blessed. My dad was my best friend growing up. Like I couldn't possibly have had a better 22 years with him than I did. So I'm blessed to have had that, and I'm glad that I have that example, and I hope that I get to pass that on to a son someday. So that's
Yeah.
all right. Happy Father's Day to everybody. If you're a
Yeah.
father, leave a comment. If you have anything you want us to pray about, if you have something that you're worried about or you're concerned about, or if there's, something that, the big
Where can they
decision that
reach
you got to
us?
make, so you can reach us anywhere in any of the chats on the different streams. So we're actually today, we kind of jumped into it without talking about it, but today we are streaming on 5 different services. We're on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Kick. So we got
We
5 different.
mostly wing it here on Faithful
Yep.
Dialogues.
But do our best to make it look like we aren't. That's the goal.
Yeah, yeah. We look
Um,
like we know what we're doing, but that's all that, you know.
uh, yeah, so you can reach us in any of the chats over there. Comment on any of our videos, or if you want to email us, you can email us at faithfuldialogues.com. And I just remembered that there's actually a phone number that
Woohoo!
that you can text. Let me see if I can pull that up.
While you're pulling that up,
Okay,
a
thank you.
couple of things that we've got coming up. So I have a very, very good friend. He shall remain by his online handle until he wants to say his name, because I don't know if he wants to say his name, but his name is Lemons. And I've known him for quite a long time, and we both kind of came to Christ, I think within the same year or within like a 6-month period. And it was interesting because he hits me up out of the blue, and he's like, "Yo, I just wanted to let you know, I gave my life to Christ, and yeah, that's what I got going on for me." And he had a couple of his friends kind of stop talking to him, and he was like really happy when I was just happy. I was like, "Yo, that's crazy! Me and my fiance, we came to Christ. Like, that's crazy that you hit me up out of nowhere." Like, I was like. Because I was in this stage where I was trying to preach the gospel to people so they would come to Christ, and he hits me up like I'm already at Christ, and it was so nice. I was like, yes, like
That's
it was it
awesome.
was it was just a place to rejoice, right? And so he's got his testimony on tap for us next week. And then coming up, we've got a 4th of July special with our that's going on stream. I don't know if you
Yes.
you're gonna yeah, you're gonna fix that.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm working on it. Sorry.
On the fly editing, don't worry, I'm just going to talk right through it. So
Yeah.
we've got our good friend Christian, who has very good undeconstructed knowledge of our founding fathers, and this nation is great. We There's a lot of educational outlets that'll tell you that this country is evil and wicked because they themselves are getting this information from their sources, and you can't really like blame them, unfortunately. And then they adopt these ideologies, and they think themselves that America's evil, and we're just so unique, we're just so different, and we've made our mistakes just like every other country, but we're just different. And like, I don't know, this I truly love this country. And so we've got a good friend Christian who has a lot of knowledge about how this country was founded and the religious views of the founding fathers and how it all kind of ties in, and it all kind of sets a narrative and a story, and it's really, really cool. You don't really hear this kind of stuff in like colleges and stuff, maybe ones that aren't trying to like deceive you. But so that's what we got going on next, or well, for the 4th of July. That's what we're going on for the 4th of July. And then
Yeah.
also Ryan doesn't know this, but I'm letting him know right now on stream. So I'm setting up my own YouTube channel that you do know about, but I have a friend who on Discord who's in the Marine Corps. So I think it'd be really, really cool. And he has a dad that's a pastor. Don't know what his denomination is or anything like that, but he's not a Christian, and that's totally fine, because I just want to interview him as a Marine and just ask him stuff as a Marine. What do you think about having him on Faithful Dialogues and just talking to him in that
Sure.
kind of context?
Yeah, I'm down to interview him and stuff. Yeah, that sounds like an interesting plan.
Cool. So, I've already preached the gospel to him, and so has Sky. So it's he knows.
Yeah.
It's generally, I was just kind of thinking we can talk about the military one day and something regarding the defense of this country and how honorable it is to. The greatest love is to lay down your life for the ones
Mm-hmm.
that you love, and so when you're somebody who's in the service, you're doing that. So thank you for everybody who's in the service and everything that you've done for this country. I love this country, so I definitely appreciate and respect everybody who puts any amount of time into anything that has to do with like the National Guard, the Army, the Marines, all of it, Navy, right, Air Force. I don't. If I didn't name your branch, it's because I don't know about it and I'm ignorant. So
I
I'm sorry.
I 100% respect and have absolute, thankfulness for all the men and the women who have laid their lives down faithfully defending our Constitution. And for anybody in service who isn't doing that, you need to reevaluate your life. You need to be
We should
faithfully.
also on that day read the Declaration of Independence and what our Constitution is, maybe a couple different amendments. It'd be cool to just to go over the founding documents of
Yeah.
our country,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even because we're from California, maybe even look at the California Constitution and how that ties into the federal Constitution. Just
Yeah.
different stuff. That'd be a cool day.
So if you have any questions relating to our government, Christian, our friend, he knows all about the founding of this country. I've got a degree in political science, so I can answer it from more of a technical point of view,
He's the brain of this
as
podcast. Yeah.
to how it works today. So just give us any America related questions. We got your bases covered in the next couple weeks with the people that we're going to be having on and talking about that kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. So just send us your questions or your comments. You can text us at 833-262-6431. That's a service that I signed us up for where it's kind of more for churches, but
It'll
what
serve this purpose, right?
yeah, and so you can text us questions that you have. You can text us prayer requests that you might have. If you just want to talk to somebody, just send us a text over there. We'll get back to you. And we just ask that you please be respectful. We're not gonna deal with people that are trolling us or anything like that. But if you've
If you're
got something,
seriously upset too, like if you're like we really made you upset, you can channel that into
hmm
respect, right? And you
yes,
can just phrase your question into, "Hey, I really didn't appreciate you guys saying this. Can you clarify what you mean by that and why you believe that? Because I totally disagree. I think it's wrong." Like you can totally just disagree with us. Just make sure it's respectable. Because if it's hateful,
hmm
we're just gonna ignore it. You can't expect us to like bring it on and give it time, right? So.
exactly. And I ask anyone if I say anything that you think isn't scriptural or isn't backed by the Word of God, please call me out for it. I don't want to be saying stuff that
Yeah,
isn't the
we want to be
truth.
accurate.
I want to be accurate, and anywhere that you want to, please respectfully just point out what we got wrong. If you want to make a clip of it, that would be even better. Um,
Yeah, make it short.
and
We'll react to it.
we'll react to it. We'll fix it. If there needs to be any fixing, we'll clarify if we need to clarify. Or if you're wrong and we think you're wrong, we'll point that out and we'll explain to you why. Okay, so that's what we do here. We have dialogues. It's mostly between me and Austin, but we also want to have a conversation with you guys as well, and open it up to you to interacting with us however you want to do that. So I'm real
Oh,
excited that we get to do this. So it's more and better every week. So please just reach out to us and you can text us 833-262-6431.
all right. And Ryan also got us set up with something called Restream IO. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Ryan?
Yeah, so that's how we are able to broadcast on all of those different streams all at once. So for Twitch, for Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, there should be an integrated chat system. I believe that's on the bottom right hand of our screen at the moment. I'm not 100% sure if it's working. So if somebody's listening, if you want to test that out for us, that would be hugely helpful. But theoretically, if you're on one of those four platforms, unfortunately, Kick doesn't work yet. But if you're on one of the four other ones that I mentioned, you should be able to chat in that stream, and then it'll show up in all the other ones as well.
We're coming for you, Kick. We're coming.
Well, Kick's a newer platform, so they just haven't quite gotten all that stuff integrated yet. I'm sure that the goal is on Kick's end to be able to have that happen. But Kick's a new platform. They actually just signed the biggest streamer in the world. His name's XQC. So
I
that's
will
why
full
we're
time quit my job. Give me a deal. I will full time quit my job. Oh my.
So, actually, I want to do a little disclaimer right now since we are talking about Kick. My understanding is Kick.com, the majority shareholder or stakeholder in that operation, is a person that also owns a gambling website. And so, one of the big things on Kick is
is that
gambling.
like a bad?
Yeah?
Sorry, I don't know why I kicked you off. All right.
No, that's okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I just want to say that, especially if you're addicted to gambling, you can find peace in that and from that in Jesus Christ. He can heal you from that kind of an addiction if you put your faith and your trust in Him, and that if it's impacting your ability to pay your bills or to do anything
Provide
that
for your family.
to provide for your family, to be a responsible adult, gambling is absolutely a major sin. Okay, if you go and you buy a single $5 scratcher once a week, probably not a big deal. I'm not going to say
So
that that's necessarily sinful. Okay, if you want to come at me and say that it is, please provide a verse and some context for that. But my understanding is, if you want to spend $5 a week, something small and reasonable that you can afford, it might be within your freedom to do that. But if it's at all affecting or impacting your ability to meet your responsibilities, or to be the man that you need to be for your family, or the woman that you need to be for your family, gambling is an absolute problem, and that would be a complete sin. It's just like alcohol. If you do too much alcohol, if you take it and put it in the wrong place in your life, then it's a problem. So
I just want to say, so like my wife's family lives in Las Vegas, like literally Las Vegas, and that's where she grew up. She lived in North Las Vegas her whole life. And so when I go to visit her brother or her mom now, they last time I went to go visit her, they bought us dinner and asked us to come to a casino to have a buffet, because COVID kind of wiped out all the buffets, like communal eating in general,
hmm
and so they were like, so there's a couple different buffets. We'll pay for you. Come out. And it was like her mom's birthday, right? And so we went out, and there I was telling her, I was like, yo, so I was at a casino one time, and my friend like put like $20 in a machine, max bet, and it got like $70 out of it. I was like, do you want to try? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so I went up to an ATM, I took $20 out, right? It
hmm
cost me $7 to take $20 out. All right. And then I went up to one machine, put in $20, max bet, slapped it. Okay. It was $12, lost my money. A cashed out voucher, went to another machine, put it in that $8, max bet, lost it, and I was like, well, that was fun gambling, and then that was it. That was kind of me. And but I think it's interesting because like it's kind of fun, and like it's not like, if you man, anything in very incremental moderation can be fun, especially if you don't abuse it. Like if you're not somebody that cares about gambling, and it's just something you can like, hey, throw a $20 bill at, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
fun. Things light up, and the sounds go boop boop boop. And like, I
Yep.
don't know.
So again, there's a sinful excess to everything, but in this instance with gambling, I do think that there is a way that you can do it in moderation, extreme moderation. I'm not saying, hundreds of dollars, right?
So me and you
Uh,
can have poker night, and it's not sinful.
that is my opinion.
Okay,
I haven't
I'd agree
found
with you.
anything in the Bible that would contradict that. In fact, there's a few places where it even says that God is the God of the lot, where there's
What's
a
a
few.
lot?
It's gambling. It's rolling dice, basically.
Oh, because I've heard cast your lot, or they
Yes,
cast lots.
yes. And so one of the places that gambling shows up is at the death of Christ. The Roman soldiers gambled for who would ultimately receive his tunic. So that's one place.
And
That's not a
Uma
good.
Thurman.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. So that's not a good place of where gambling was, but and I wouldn't call this gambling. We don't know exactly what it was, but we think that it was some kind of a random, uh, not number generator, but a randomness generator. Were these two objects that the ancient Israelites had, called the Umim and the Thummim, Umim and Thummim. It's weird words. Um, And so they used that to determine what God wanted them to do in very specific instances. And so, because of that, there's a verse in the Bible that says that God is the God of the lot. And so, one of the things that the Bible teaches is that randomness isn't a thing. The things that happen are because of the way that God designed the world. And so, if you win the lottery, that's because that's what God had for you for that day, right? And so,
Every good and perfect
again,
gift comes from the Lord.
not saying to go gamble. Please don't. If it's an issue for you, please don't gamble.
If
Don't
it's a stumbling block
if
for
it's
you,
a stumbling block.
exactly.
And so the only thing we'll say here after this is not to gamble. I just wanted to kind of put that out there since we are streaming there today. If, like I said, if you are a gambler, there is salvation for you. You're not, you're not some horrible wretch any worse than anybody else. And that you can come to Christ and find salvation in Him, and He's the surest bet you can make.
Hey, man, that was I like what you did there.
All right, so we got that out of the way. Our little anti-gambling PSA. What else we got for today, Austin?
Before we roll into, we're gonna talk about different aspects of why fatherhood is so important. And
Okay.
I am the perfect person to talk about. Like, you remember how we had that science episode where it was like, how does Christianity and science come together? And that's like
Mhm.
you. So, aspects of why fatherhood is important. My dad wasn't in my life, and I'm not trying to like say that to get any kind of sympathy, but there was a lot of things that I kind of had to take a lot longer to learn than I would say you did, because your dad was just right there to kind of like speed you
Mhm.
through it. And so like you actually got to look at another man and then emulate that man. I did not have that. So unfortunately that meant I had to look at other masculine boys at school and try to emulate them, or other faculty at school, like actual
Well,
adults, and emulate them, like, or stuff like that. You
well,
know
and
what I mean?
sorry. Can I make a little side comment right now?
Yeah,
That's one of the
absolutely.
biggest. That's one of the biggest problems with our schooling system. So if you look at how education worked before 1900, you were in. If there was a classroom, it was a group of children from the community, and it was all different ages. Okay, so what you said right there was you didn't have a dad, so you had to copy the other children at your school. Well, the other children at your school are the same age as you. Okay? They have the same level of maturity that you have, and so you're looking at other people that are just as equally flawed as you.
Yeah.
What you would have gotten if it was before 1900 is you would have been in the community. You would have either been with a bunch of different aged boys, where you would have had older boys to look at and to see what they were doing with a little bit more maturity. But the other thing is you would have also been put into an apprenticeship program where you were working with men in the professional community, learning how to do useful
Yeah,
skills. And
that'd
so
have been nice.
like, as bad as it would still be to not have a father, there would have been not programs, but the way the community was designed was healthier for you to get all of that role modeling still done. Does that make sense? So you
Yeah.
got extra left behind because of how whack and upside down our society is. And because of artificial constraints that we've put on children and on our community by slotting them into grade levels. Okay, so it might seem like the most normal thing in the world. We all went to school that was divided up by age. Our parents all went to school divided up by age.
Then you see
Even
these homeschools, and then they're all like lumped together, and how they
hmm
socialize. Man, these young kids get their social, like how social they are, and how emotionally their emotional intelligence just skyrockets, because they're like this 8-year-old hanging out with a 12-year-old, and so the 12-year-old's trying to be like, dude, stop, don't do that, and then they're like,
yep.
like they're
But
like, no,
what people don't understand is that's great for the 8-year-old. It's wonderful for the 12-year-old. Okay, so
because he gets
the
the model being a
yes,
good man to
so
the,
there's two things. They get to see all the little kids being dumb and how dumb they are. So then they realize, oh, I shouldn't be dumb like that anymore. I'm not a little kid. So they start cutting out their little kid behaviors. Okay, the number two, they're teaching that kid. So when you're learning something, the final step to really mastering anything is teaching it to somebody else. Okay. And so you don't truly understand and know a concept until you're capable of and likely have already passed it on to someone else. And so that's what we're missing in the educational system that we have is we have all of these people that learn all this stuff, but they never do the final step of teaching it to somebody else. Instead, that final step's replaced with a test where they just dump all that knowledge on a page and then forget it. Right? So like the final step of actual education is to teach it to someone else, to teach it to someone younger than you. And then they're going to ask you all the questions that you don't have the answers to, and you're going to have to go figure out how to answer their questions. So it's if you go and you look at how God designed actual human families, actual human communities, and the way that we have artificially changed that in our society, it's crazy. So sorry, that was a little bit of a side comment
No, it's
from what
good.
you were saying. What was your question again?
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure. I was interested
So,
in what you were saying. I don't
yeah,
even remember where we were.
you were talking about fathers and kind of the role that they play in like teaching you stuff and helping you to like mature, I think.
Yeah, like b basically it was just why we were going to talk about why fatherhood is like important and stuff like that, and I'm a perfect person to talk about this because I've directly hit these kind of obstacles where it's like these other boys who have dads in their lives are kind of
Mm,
like they're kind of I don't know they just I I will just leave it at that,
yeah,
and we'll talk about other things. I'm qualified is what I'm trying to say to talk
yeah,
about this.
that's awesome. And not awesome that you had to go through those things, but that you can recognize it and have a conversation about it, right? Like there's a lot of people that
Well,
would be hurt by it and couldn't talk about it. So,
no, I'm not gonna choose to be a victim of my circumstance. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna channel that into recognizing how important it is. I a father is in a boy's life. That when I have a male, I'm going to do all the things that I wish that I was had with my dad. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
for
so because
uh
I
f-
understand the importance of all those things.
yeah, for any fathers that are listening, any new fathers or fathers of young children, what are some of the things that you think you might have missed out on that they should kind of think about making sure that they hit?
Their interaction with women,
Interaction with
number
women?
one.
Okay. In what respects?
How you talk to them, how you physically position yourselves around them, just all kinds of stuff. It's just oh man,
Okay, so
trying not
like
to be
what was that?
I'm trying not to be emotional. Just like I
Okay.
had to my figuring out because obviously I'm heterosexual, right? Like trying to figure out women was really, really tough. Because like I
Mhm.
had a single mom and like you don't want to talk to your mom about that stuff, right?
Yeah, I can feel you on that.
So it was challenging for sure. So I just had to realize like just the dynamic between a man and the woman and like I really looked to my grandpa like I it sucks because like when I came around my grandparents they didn't interact as much.
Mhm.
I had to like be looking at them from afar to really see them interacting. They weren't really public with how they were interacting like at all. Like do you know what I mean? Whereas like me and my wife like we I don't care who sees me like I'll hug her, kiss her, anything like that. Whereas my grandparents we came from a different time where they did that stuff in private. They weren't like public about their affection, right? So
Yeah.
like I didn't get to really see how my grandpa talked to my grandma. I didn't really get to see, and my dad and mom weren't together, so I didn't see how they talked to each other. So it was just like um how you converse with a woman as in a relationship. Like what does that look like? Do you like how are you like are you, are you firm? Are you gentle? Like do you know what I mean? Like it's like I just don't know any of this stuff. And so
Yeah.
that would be the biggest thing.
Mhm. Well, and
So
kind of
yeah.
conversely, you were saying that and I was thinking about how my dad modeled that perfectly for me and how much of a blessing that is that he was able to show me how to interact with his wife, in the proper way, he wasn't 100% the most loving, but it was like 99% the most loving and caring relationship. It is the most loving and caring relationship I've ever seen in my life. And it's just such a huge blessing to be able to have seen that, and hopefully I'll be able to model that half as good as what he did in the future, right? Like, so it's And that's not something that I necessarily would have thought about if you hadn't kind of brought that up and mentioned it the way that you did. So, for all you dads out there, like if you haven't done that perfectly, that's not good, but it's okay. You can always start over and restart the relationship today and put it on a better footing with whoever it is in your life. And so none of this is to condemn fathers who aren't in their kids' lives or aren't doing it properly. It's just to kind of help you highlight some things that might be places you could look into to being better for your kid.
The best case scenario for for this conversation too is like you're with your wife, you have kids, and you're not doing these things, and you realize how important it is that your role model affects your witness to your kids. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you need to understand like it's very, very, very important, and your every little thing that you do, what you believe in, your mannerisms, it's all being imbued into your kids.
Yep.
How you talk to your wife, all of it. It's very, very important because
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna be byproducts of you, like everything, how polite they are, how rude they are, how patient they are, all of it. It's gonna be you,
Yeah.
you know? So
Um,
it's just crazy.
the other thing is, especially it being Father's Day today, and us both missing fathers at the moment, we're probably a little bit harsher on them than we might otherwise be, because we're not trying to be down on fathers. Fathers are amazing, they're wonderful, and they're an absolutely necessary part of society. And I think that a lot of fathers have been overly criticized forever. So again, we're not trying to overly criticize anybody. And I think
No,
that in
it's
the
a
future,
very prestigious role
yeah,
still.
and I think that in the future we'll need to talk about how women can more properly submit to their husbands, because that is something that the Bible calls them to do. Okay, and that's not a popular thing to say in our society. The way that it feels to say that. Okay, when I just said that women need to submit to their husbands, the way what flashes in my brain because of the way that we're programmed by society is almost to the effect of like women are enslaved to their husbands. That's not what I'm saying. So anybody that else that has that flash up when I say women should submit to their husbands, I'm not saying that they're like slaves to their husbands or they should do
I'll
100% exactly what he says all the time.
I'll flavor it a little bit different so that it sounds like, so when you say submit to your husband, it's like, let me be the captain of this ship and you'll make me
Hmm.
feel like such a man.
Yep.
If you let me be in control of this ship, I will feel like a man. If you just say, you know what, honey, I respect your ability to steer this ship. I'm gonna let you do it. Then it just makes you feel like a man. And so that's
Yep.
what it is. That dynamic between a man and a woman. It's just he wants to take charge. Let him do it. Like, and he'll do such a good job. And if he messes up and is error, hopefully he's the type of person that can like hear his like mistakes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Hey,
And
I saw you doing this. I think it could be a little bit better, and just to be really respectful how you talk to men because they're sensitive when
hmm
their performance is such a big part of they critique the crap out of their own performance. So be very gentle when you come and critique a man because they're already critiquing themselves a lot. So you
yeah.
gotta
And
you
it's
gotta
and so one of the things I think that we should have an episode about this in the future. We should probably try to find a female or a woman or a mother actually to interview. Um, but one of the things that like Chuck Missler would talk about was there was a point in his marriage it was going really really horribly. So Chuck Missler's a Bible teacher. He's passed away unfortunately. Yeah, I love him.
super smart guy.
Yeah.
Brought a science flavor to the Bible. It was great.
Yeah, but he was talking about a time where he was having marital problems and family problems, and his wife decided that she would go and she would submit to him even though he wasn't being perfect. And what that meant to her was one of the examples that I don't know, he didn't list everything that she did because I'm sure she did just innumerable things that you couldn't even list. But one of the things that stuck out to him the most as the man of the house was there was a day where came home, he'd have dinner, and then there would be dessert, and the kids would go and grab their favorite desserts from the freezer, okay, and then he'd get whatever the kids had. The next day, his wife, I think her name was Nancy, she had bought his favorite dessert, and that's what everybody had that day. And what happened was from one day to the next, she had decided to submit to him as the captain of the ship, as the head of the household, and as the captain of the ship gets his favorite ice cream. Okay, that's just what happens. And so instead of the kids getting the best stuff, she was making sure he got his favorite stuff. And so that just it changed. It broke his heart. He actually started to break down his problems, and he actually was able to right the ship because of her faithfulness and because of her submission to him as the head. And so she took that first step and was able to help repair the relationship that way. And so that's what we're talking about when we say submission. Not like she has to go and do exactly what the man tells her to do, but just approach the man as someone that you respect and that you honor, and that you're going to try to serve the best that you can, and then he's going to do the same thing to you back. Is kind of how a proper functioning healthy relationship goes from what I've seen.
And then I've always wanted to kind of understand the other side of this. If you're like a woman and you're hearing this and you're a Christian and it's like you're being asked by God and his word to submit to your husband, you if you're single, you should be very choosing and careful of who you're going to submit
Mm-hmm.
yourself to. And the
Yep.
most important thing you can do is look for a man of character who submits himself to God. Because if he's submitting himself to God, you best believe that he's going to be treating you with love. He's going to be just examining his character. He's going to be hearing when you have some kind of critique that he's doing wrong. It's just you. And the unfortunate situation is like when you're in a marriage where that's not the case, but you have the most that's why when a man proposes to a woman, you're in the seat of control. It's the same like if I go and ask a company if they want to do some ads with me at this price, rate. Well, they can negotiate higher or lower based because they're in a position of control because I proposition them. They
Mm-hmm.
can just say no, I don't even want to work with you at all. So like as a woman, you're in control here. It's like, look, you see me for who I am. This is what I have to offer. Will you marry me? You're in control here. You can just say no because I don't like how you do this. I don't like how you do that. And then most likely a man, if he really, really wants you and is a man of character, he's like, oh, we'll fix that then. Let's do this. I will fix that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's what I want women to know is you
Yeah.
don't just have to go and blindly marry dudes. Like you want to choose a man of character and then
Mm-hmm.
willingly submit yourself to somebody because like that's why it's nice that God is like a just God, because submitting myself to a just God, he's not a tyrant, right? I know I'm not. It's the same thing with your husband. If you have
Mm-hmm.
this gentle man who's just sweet in every way, yeah, that's the man you want to marry. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So
and well, really, what you want is a man who is sweet and kind and gentle, but has the capacity to be an absolute brute, right?
yeah, you break into
But
my
has it
house
under
and
control.
everything's off the table. Everything's
Mm-hmm.
off the table. You break into my house. I'm
Yep.
just,
Exactly. And so that's what you want. And the other thing is, please, women, don't construe anything that we're saying to mean that you should stay in the same proximity as someone who's abusing you. Okay, that's not at all what any of us are saying here on this show. A lot of people twist what we say, what Christians say in this regard, to mean that we're saying you should stay with somebody who's abusing you. Absolutely not. Get away from that person, and then get the counseling and the help that you need, and the protection that you need. Okay. So I think that marriages are incredibly sacred. I think that divorce is a heinous thing that's destroying our
it's bad.
society.
It's not. Divorce
But
is not good. You make a lifetime commitment when you get married. You say the
hmm
words, till death do we part. That's not some. You shouldn't get married if you
yeah,
cannot make that commitment for life. If it's
hmm
just something for now, then don't even get married. Like,
yep.
I don't know.
But again, if the man is hurting you or physically abusing you or like severely emotionally abusing you, that's a little gray area that we probably wouldn't agree on. Me and the viewer, I mean. Uh, you know, if that's happening, get away, get to safety, get some support, go to your church, right? Talk to you, find somewhere that's safe for you to go and get the help that you need, of course. So,
The best probably case that I would say if you're in an abusive situation is separate yourself and then have counsel speak to the man, and
yeah,
then hopefully through prayer and like
yep.
intervention that he would come to repent of his wickedness and that you come together again in like a safe place. That's the best case scenario. I don't
That's
want
the best
anybody
case
to get
scenario.
divorced.
No, I don't want it either, but we also live in the real world and understand that there's horrible situations that require things that
People
aren't.
are unhinged. Yep.
So I don't want anybody to be able to come at us and say, oh, you want people to stay with abusers or anything like that. No, absolutely
That's why we have
not.
to cover every angle because they will. Anything we don't say, they're gonna use against us. So we have to
Yeah.
cover all this whole spectrum of. But
So,
we're not saying this.
yeah. So I wouldn't bring it up if it was just me, but this is being recorded and put out to the world. So I want to make sure that that everybody knows where we're at, and that we absolutely love and support women who have been abused and want to help them to stop being abused in any way that we can. But in a relationship that's just sour, right? It isn't completely horrible, right? But in a relationship that just isn't what it should be, there are things that women can do to actually submit to their husbands who aren't being faithful, that then leads them to be faithful and to turn back to what their true responsibilities are supposed to be. That's what I was trying to
on a
communicate.
on a baseline comparison, it's like when somebody's mean to you and you're not mean back, and that reaction causes them to walk away from that and go, "Man, I shouldn't have treated that person that." But if you
Mm-hmm.
respond back with evil, they're going to feel justified in their wickedness. So
Exactly.
it's one of those things that it'll, and even Paul says it in his epistles that through your godliness and through your character, it would convert your husband. So like can't think of the verse right now, but basically a woman's obedience to her husband would convict him of his character. You know what I mean? So it's
And
when we see each other doing the right thing, it makes us realize we're not on. We should be on a more straight path. You know, I'm having a hard time articulating this, but go ahead.
and yeah, and ultimately the best Father's Day gift that a woman can get for their man is their submission and their acceptance of the role that the man plays in their life. And that's the best thing you can do for any man, right? Like if that's not happening, or if there's ways that you can do that a little bit better, that's the best thing you can do. It's gonna benefit you, it's gonna benefit your family, and it's gonna benefit him for the rest of the year, way more than a tie would.
The idea, the ideal framework here is the man completely dies to self, 100% submits to God, and then you are submitting to somebody that's doing that,
Hmm.
and everything should go full circle
Well,
and
it's
completely be nice.
yeah. Well, so the whole chain is it's God up at the top. The whole reason the entire universe exists is to glorify Him. So everything is set in such a way that we're all supposed to ultimately look towards Him and towards His glory. Okay, and then Jesus Christ submits Himself to the will of the Father, and so we see Him doing that to the point where He ultimately is sacrificed on the cross and dies for us for our sins. Okay, and because of that, men are supposed to submit themselves to Christ as the head of their family, and they're supposed to follow after him in his example of sacrificing himself for the church. And so we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves and our bodies for the women and the children that are in our lives. And then ultimately, what women are supposed to do is submit themselves to their husbands, and children are supposed to submit themselves to their mothers and their fathers as well. And so we can just see this chain of, basically it's a chain of command, that if everything's lined up perfectly and everyone is doing what they should be doing, it's going to glorify God maximally. And the more of those pieces that are in line, so if the God's obviously where he should be, Jesus is where he should be, and so the next person in the line is the man. If the man's where he should be, it's going to be easier for the woman to get in that line, and it's going to be easier for the children to get into that line as well. And so that's a reason why one of the qualifications for pastors and elders and teachers is that you're a man of one
Families in
wife.
order.
It's basically it's that your family's in order. You're a man of one wife. Your children aren't complete screw offs, and they aren't out messing up and making you look bad. Those are basic qualifications for elders that I think a lot of us aren't looking towards, that aren't using properly anymore. I think there's a lot of elders in our churches where their children are complete nightmares, and their wife disrespects them at every turn, right? And those are the types of people that we shouldn't have in leadership at our church, in our churches. So,
So also I wanted to point out if a man's, so you know how the wife is labeled the helper of man, right? In
hmm
Genesis. And so if the way this works is a man's whole being is devoted to service to the family, wife first, kids second, right? That's 100% of his being is devoted to that. How he labors and his time and energy is spent towards his wife first and his kids second. Then his wife's job is as the helper is to help her husband serve the family, which effectively is her and then first and then the kids second. So like it's kind of interesting because like when men start like putting themselves first, you see this breakdown. Like it starts to affect how he views himself, how people are treated and taken care of, and just
Mm-hmm.
different stuff. So when, as a man, when you're in the role of this, I'm the captain, I steer the ship, your character should be that I'm completely 100% devoted to my crew, which is your wife first and then your kids second, right? Because your kids can't come first because your relationship and your marriage is what sustains them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make sure that your wife comes first. You know what I mean? So when she's submitting herself to a man who's giving himself entirely to her and her kids. That's the way this should be. So as a guy, you kind of got to die to yourself in order to be the man that God wants you to be. And so
Yep.
that's kind of how I wanted to wrap this up.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is God's number one in all of it, right? Like your
Hmm.
wife is incredibly important, but she's number two, okay? And
Yeah.
that's how she should want it, right? God number one, whatever God's calling you to do, that's what you need to be fighting for. And if you're doing that properly and you're explaining yourself the way that God empowers you to explain yourself, you'll be able to lead your family wherever God wants you to go. And so that's what I hope that our fathers get out of this, and I hope that they start trying to do a little bit better today. I think that fathers in this society are massively undervalued, and I certainly appreciate mine. I appreciate all the good fathers that are in my life. Congratulations to my friend Will. This is his first.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, is this
Shout
this is
outs to
his
fathers. You're
this is
first. Go for it.
it's his second Father's Day technically, because I believe you're a father at the point of conception, not at the point of birth. But it's his first Father's Day where he's got a little baby bouncing around on his knee out in Arizona. So congratulations to him and his wife and their little kid. It's a beautiful little family, and I'm glad that they get to celebrate today. So we'll
Any
end
more
on that.
shout outs?
That's the only father that I really have in my close personal life. I don't know about you.
Let me think. So so my sister's husband, Adam, because I have three nephews and one niece, and
Hmm.
so that would be Jaden, Evan, Tristan, and Haley. And so for coming from my sister Sarah's husband, Adam. I have some friends in Central California. Isaac just had twins, Zeke and Noah. I have a friend named Brendan who has a son named Caleb. I have a friend named John. Oh, I can't think of John's baby's name. Oh, he's gonna tear me up for this. Um, Gosh, and then my friend Sam has a son named Abel, and
Nice.
you can see how we feel about the biblical names over here. I'm definitely gonna have a biblical name for my children. I just think it's so cool. I don't know. I like God's word so much, and I like the heroes of the faith so much. They're just so cool. Like,
Yeah. Well,
um, it,
that's beautiful that you have so many people to shout out and so many kids in your family. That's a thing. Again, our society isn't having as many kids as we used to, and it's an absolute travesty.
have
Uh,
10 kids, guys. Come on,
yes.
have 10 kids.
And
What are you doing?
I'm guilty of this. I don't have a wife. I don't have any kids yet, so that's something I need to work on as well. But just
Lower tax rates, higher government stuff. You net go up. You go up. Have more kids. Go up.
Look, at the end of the day, if when you're 80 years old and you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be happy if you're surrounded
By the
by a
way,
bunch of cats. You will
by
be
the way,
happy if you're surrounded by your kids.
I am not a person of money. Do you see my webcam? I am not a person of money, okay? I am not making very much money and I plan to have very many kids. So one of my biggest things before I came to Christ was, A, I'm not a man yet, don't want to have kids. But throw that out, all right? I don't have enough money, throw that out also. Just do it, just send it, just absolutely have the kids and then start your your social network is huge. Your mom, your dad, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, even your close friends. Just getting a good social network that can help you is huge. And like, you know what I mean?
So
So yeah, I would encourage everybody just to not be
yeah.
afraid to have children because we're built for it. We're built to have
Mm-hmm.
children.
Well, and the other thing is the people that think that they're too poor to have kids, it's absolutely insane to me. So if you think that, you have absolutely no understanding of history whatsoever. Okay, your
People were
grandparents,
oppressed having children.
no,
Like
no, like
Jews in
your
Egypt.
okay, like, your grandparents, okay, they didn't have plastic. Just imagine how many products and
Oh
things
man,
in your
glass
life,
everything.
okay, and so like literally just the world that they lived in was harder. Okay, they didn't have all of the amenities that we have today. They didn't have the money that we have today. Your grandparents more than likely were completely dirt poor and had
Yeah,
like
my
nothing.
grandma was born in 28,
Okay,
dude. She came out of the depression.
and so like they were bringing kids into this world in the Great Depression, and we're trying to say that we don't have the means to bring kids into the world today when we've all got $1,000 cell phone in our pockets and access to being able to go out and drive Uber at any moment that we want to make some extra money. Like
Couldn't be
the
a better time to have children, to be real.
it's never been easier. It has
It's never
never
been
in the
easier.
history of the world been easier and cheaper and more like everything is just better to have kids today, and they're literally just lying to you and telling you that it's so expensive. And part of
You want to
that
hear my
is
plan?
okay, what's your plan?
Sorry. My ADHD is just like
It's
losing
okay.
itself.
No, you're
Go,
good.
go for
You're
it.
good. No, no, no. I want to hear your plan. Now you've got me on your
So,
plan.
I don't want a hospital to be involved with my baby because
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like that idea. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a big like we'll say a rental big truck, and I'm gonna
Oh,
have
so
a
so wait,
mid.
have you talked to Will and Sky about this?
No, I do want to talk to them about it, but my
Oh
idea
yeah,
was
so
to
they
basically
didn't.
park a jet.
No, they have. There's a whole system outside the hospital. There's
Basically,
doulas and all that.
I want to have a midwife and basically stuff set up inside of a truck that's next to a hospital. So if anything goes wrong, I can be right next to a hospital, literally just
So
like 100
yeah,
feet from
it's
it.
it's it's so funny. The clinic that Sky had her kid at is across the street from a hospital. Like
Really?
what you're talking about already exists as physical buildings.
Okay,
Like,
cool. I didn't know
yeah,
about that.
you don't even
You
need to
can
do any
see
of that.
obviously that I don't
Yeah,
look into
I was. That's why I was
things.
trying to cut you off because I was like, what you're talking about, you don't even need to do, bro. Like, that's exactly what they've already done. They have all these facilities set up across the street from hospitals for that very possibility. So you
That's
99% of the
funny.
time you have the kid normally. In
If
the
anything goes
if
wrong, then you
anything
go
goes
over
wrong,
there.
then you get wheeled across the street and you're good
That's
to
what I'm
go.
looking to do because I don't want to be involved with the hospitals. Just it just feels like I'm just like yeah,
So
I'm accepting what you think is right and how you should deal with my baby. And like honestly, it's my baby. Like let me
it's
deal with
a
my baby. I don't
like
know. That's my opinion.
my recommendation: go watch the RFK interview on Joe Rogan, and you'll just be completely horrified by
What
our.
is RFK?
Oh,
I bet they
so
put a bunch of stuff in your baby without your consent, and there's
oh,
a lot of things that you don't
so
want, and you have no choice. And yeah,
so they shoot up kids with 72 vaccines at these days, like, and they've been doing that since the 90s. And a lot of
no
those
wonder
vaccines
I
have
have ADHD.
well, a lot of those vaccines have mercury in them.
Or formaldehyde and just random weird stuff.
So
Like I've looked into the ingredients list and it's
so
really bad.
there is a reason for that, and he explains it. So all of the bad stuff that they put in it is called an adjuvant. Okay, and so what an adjuvant's job is it's supposed to irritate your body. So it's supposed to be something that your body doesn't like and that's poisonous and harmful. And
So
what
that
it
it can trigger
does,
an immune response.
yes, so it triggers an immune response at the same time that you're injecting the dead virus cells that you're
So that
trying
it can
to. So then your
assume that
body
okay.
associates the bad
Yeah, yeah.
thing, okay? And so that's what they're supposed to do, but we have to figure out how these things get out of your body. And so the problem that they had specifically with mercury is the original
It
tests that
lingers.
they did is they were testing two different kinds of mercury. There's one kind of mercury that sits in your body for like 60 days, and there's another type of mercury that they thought only stayed in your body for 2 weeks. And that's because they did blood tests on kids that received these different shots,
And the
and
levels went down.
and the levels went down of one type of mercury after 2 weeks, and the other one stayed for 60 days. What they then did is they did the same, but they couldn't find where the mercury went. So they monitored all of their urine, they monitored all of their poop, and they couldn't figure out where the mercury was going. And so they did the same study on some monkeys, but what you can do with a monkey and what you can't do with a kid is you can humanely kill the monkey and figure out where the mercury went. Well, it just so happens that this kind of mercury that they claimed disappeared and got out of your bloodstream, it's small enough that it passes the blood-brain barrier, and so all
Into
of
your
the
brain?
mercury, yes, it goes directly into these kids' brains and causes inflammation in your brain, and that's possibly what causes autism.
Oh, so that's why all the moms that were talking about the vaccines
So,
cause autism. It probably causes a situation that links to it. Now this video
yes,
is getting super flagged. Oh my.
yeah, I just realized that, but that's the truth. So they can
We're
come
not
at me,
making
bro.
any medical claims. We don't know
Yeah.
anything. We don't know anything. All right.
Talk
We know
talk to your
nothing.
doctor. Talk to your doctor.
We're completely wrong. This is all just conjecture. We know nothing. We're not doctors.
Again, check out the RFK interview
Did I
on
cover all the
Spotify.
bases? We're not doctors. We're not doctors.
But yeah, so check that out. I wasn't even talking about COVID-19, so that wasn't the vaccine I was talking about. But yeah, so I just don't trust the system that we have today. There's no reason for us to trust anything in our system. Our government isn't trustworthy. Our none of our experts are trustworthy. It's just not a thing. You have to do
You
your own
can bet-
research.
You can bet that like the government looks at you as a way as a means to an end. Like they're trying to monetize your whole existence. And so you have to understand that they care about you to an extent. Like they care about you giving them data, giving them money, giving them what they want, right?
Yep.
So your parents and God, most parents, definitely God, love you. And like it's
Well,
man,
and
why do I
people
gotta
in your
act like the government's
yeah.
my dad? It's not. Sorry, go
It's
ahead.
not. Well, I was going to say that the original way that human society was structured was geared around your local community. It was geared around your church, your synagogue, the people that you would go and worship with, and those people you can be somewhat assured of that they care about you. Okay, and if they don't just care about you, they care about your well-being because you doing well impacts the rest of the community positively. And so when you have a bunch of people that have to look you in the eye, that have to shake your hand and come over and help you do a barn raising, right? Like, those are the people that you can count on. You can't count on some unelected bureaucrat in Washington caring anything about you whatsoever. All they care about is their paycheck. They get a paycheck, they do some amount of work, hopefully as little as possible, as far as they're concerned, usually, and then they go home at the end of the day. They don't care if the EPA is actually protecting the environment. They don't care if the justice system is actually putting away criminals that are, terrorizing our society. What
Or
they
if the
care about,
FDA doesn't mess with your food or like just different
So-
things.
the thing that we've all been bamboozled by for decades, a century now, is the fact that we can trust the government. You can't trust the government. You shouldn't trust the government. We have a system.
Assume they're lying the whole time.
Our system is designed with the assumption that everybody's got cross purposes and is doing something horribly wrong. That's why the House checks the Senate. That's why those two bodies together check the president. That's why the president checks them back. That's why the Supreme Court has a check on them as well. Like, all of them are supposed to be checked and balanced by each other. And the problem is that at the federal level, they've all just started colluding and working against you. And
So
so
my favorite way of navigating the political scene is who's getting the most flack for standing up for truth and going against the grain. That person, you should look at what they're saying because they're probably saying some righteous thing that's moral.
So, I just realized we're kind of getting away from our faithful part of the dialogue and more into political. And this isn't political
Sorry.
dialogues; it's faithful dialogues. So
You're right. You're right.
we'll get back on
Father's
it.
Day. Father's Day.
Well, we're actually an hour and almost 15 minutes into this broadcast. Did you want to try to get into? I think it was the Gospel of John, right?
Well, so we have that, and I also have, remember, I have a bunch of points,
Oh,
why
okay.
fatherhood is so important. Did you wanna, it's up to you. How
Oh,
did you wanna
sorry.
do this?
I wasn't aware you had those points. If you want to go into some more points, that'd be perfect. I'm not
All
going to
right.
complain about that.
So we talked a little bit about why it's important that you have a male role model in like in the vicinity so you can like just emulate them and stuff. But like speak to something like emotional intelligence. Like this is something I barely really understand. It's because I just don't really, I didn't know it was something I should look into. I don't really know what emotional intelligence is, but I'm sure fathers can help their children, develop this. I can deduce what it is, right? So like yeah, how can fathers help their son specifically navigate
So,
emotional intelligence?
one of the biggest blessings that I had as a child is that my dad has a PhD in psychology,
Oh,
and is
nice.
also a very faithful Christian, a very small cross section of people. And
Right?
and
Yeah,
so
psychology and a Christian.
my so what he did, and I think the best way that a father can model this sort of thing, the best thing that a father can do is model it properly. Okay, so not once do I ever remember hearing my dad get overly angry. He never yelled at my mom. He never did anything disrespectful towards my mother, towards us, in front of us. Okay, and that's one of the things that I think men have the biggest problem with is not regulating their own emotions in front of their children. And so what you see in men is that they then think it's okay that for them to go and do that and to have emotional dysregularity as a thing that happens to them. And so boys are, we're too emotional or we're not emotional at all. It kind of goes in both directions potentially. And then the other thing is in women they then accept that from men. And so if you have a man that's emotionally dysregulated or not modeling that emotional intelligence properly, then they're not going to look for or expect that from the men that they date and interact with. And so those are two of the biggest problems that can arise if you don't have a level of control or a level of understanding of your own emotional where you are at with your own emotional intelligence. And it's something we can all do better. I've recently been having some, I've been a little bit more angry than I probably should be. Um, and that's just something that you have to work on as a man. And
Me too. You're not alone.
and that's why the Bible says that you should be slow to speak, right? If you're not speaking, it's going to be a little bit harder to convey that you're having this emotional problem, right? And when you do speak, you should be slow to anger. You shouldn't do it from a point where you're you're emotional and you're angry. And so that's just the best thing that a man can do is model it properly. I don't know that there's a way to talk about it or discuss it. I think that in our society we want to be able to have a sit down conversation at the end of the bed with your son and be like, son, here's what you should do. And those just aren't really things that happen. Like that'll happen a
Yeah.
couple times here and there, but for the most part that son is really learning from their father by watching and looking at what that father is doing. Kids, if you don't know this, what a kid is doing, what a child is doing, is they are literally trying to watch you, listen to you, look at you, look to you for their ability to interpret and understand the world. Right? Like one of the processes that a baby goes through is they listen to you speak, and from that, they somehow cobble together the ability to speak themselves. And so if what we can do is we can extrapolate that out to everything else. Okay, they look at you for how they should eat, they look at you for how they should speak, they look at you for what they should do with their free time. A child is looking at you and trying to copy the things that you do. That's why a lot of the times if a dad likes football, a kid's going to end up watching football with his dad on Sunday mornings, right? That's just how it's going to be because that's what the dad's doing. The kid's going to model that. And
We'll
so,
hopefully have similar interests. You'd be honored and flattered if your son or took
and,
after you in that way.
and there's a lot of times when they don't, of course, right? Like kids are going to develop their own interests at a certain point. But for the most
How
part.
sad is it when the guitarist dad or the drummer dad, his kids don't want anything to do with music, and they're like, "No, I couldn't make my family band now."
Yeah, well, and the talented stuff, that's a little bit harder because like it's easy to sit down and watch football with your dad. It's a lot harder if your dad's an NFL linebacker to go and play football with your dad. Like you can't do that,
Right.
right? You can go outside and play catch or whatever, but like the expectation that you have the same level of skill as him shouldn't be there, right? So,
Unless
what
it's something like intellectual, because you would hope that if your dad's good at reasoning, that his son would be good at reasoning as well. That he'd teach his son reasoning or something like that, right?
well,
You'd
and
hope that if it's something,
that's
like
a
you can
yeah.
learn or logical.
Well, that's a good point, and that's the other thing is fathers can be more explicit in their
I'm gonna take my jacket off really quick.
fathers can be more explicit in their explanations of different things to their children. Okay, so you can kind of explain step by step your thought process as to why you're doing this thing. I know that a lot of children feel like their parents are being really arbitrary and are just kind of being authoritarian on their lives because they're cracking down on them for doing certain things or for watching too much TV or whatever, and they don't ever get a proper thought out kind explanation as to why that's the case. You get kids, especially these days, get a lot of "that's because I told you," right, or because I said so, and that's just not an acceptable answer for 99% of kids. That's just going to create
Instead of
animosity.
this behavior is wrong, and we don't do this behavior. Yeah,
Well, and
that's
then
what it needs.
but
Yeah.
then explaining either it comes from the Bible. So if you give a kid a completely solid source, so if you say the Bible is the inerrant word of God, which it is, and that then because it's the inerrant word of God, I can point to it as a reason, okay? That's what kids are looking for. They're looking for a solid foundational reason. And so if you can point to them and say the Bible literally says that murdering is wrong, that's why murder is wrong, okay? They can
We
accept
follow
that.
God, and that's why and that's why we don't do this.
And we can say and we can point to verses where it talks about gluttony being a problem, and so that's why we don't
Which is
eat too
what?
much. That's why we don't eat sugar for every meal. That's why you can't have ice cream for breakfast, right? Like you can point to a solid source as to why that is the case. So that's helpful, and then just explaining and having a reason for the things that you're doing. You should know why you're doing things. I don't know why you would do something that you couldn't explain to somebody. And if that's the case, then you should just do that for your children and give them a little explanation. And so I think there's a lot of parents that do that well, but there's a lot of parents that don't. And so that's that's my recommendation is explain things more to kids.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. And I'm gonna give you I just Googled something about masculinity, and this is a huge thing that the culture is kind of talking about. And so there's masculinity and femininity. I don't know. Yeah.
See an
And so
enemy. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna give you kind of the list that this Google thing is saying, right? And so we've got confidence,
Mm-hmm.
protection, courage, discipline, capable, assertive, certain, stable, supportive, logical, focused, responsible. What do you kind of think about these? You know, these are terms that would be associated with being a masculine type. So it's like not to say that responsibility is only if you're masculine, and if you're
Yeah.
a woman and you're responsible, you're kind of masculine. No, that's not what we're saying here. I'm just kind of wondering, what is your take on that, and why are these things important? Like, just speak on those different
So
things.
let's just take
Masculinity as a whole.
Yeah. So these are all kind of either synonyms or attributes of masculinity. And let's just take confidence, right? So confidence is an important part of masculinity because what you're doing is you're leading. And if you're an unconfident or if you're a weak leader, okay, you're not doing things with assurance and understanding what you're doing, having thought it through. Okay, if you're not a confident leader, the rest of your team won't follow you properly. They will be doing things to try to not undermine what you're doing, but try to make up for their perceived deficiencies before you even start. So for example, uh, let's say that you want to go that your family's hungry and you want to go out to dinner, right? What happens in a lot of couples today is the guy will go, "Hey, honey, what do you want to where do you want to go get dinner?" And she's like, "I don't know, you tell me." And then the guy goes, "Well, I don't know what you want, so I'm going to unconfidently answer you, and we're going to then have another 10-minute conversation where we don't actually end up with any, definitive
Suggestions. Yeah.
suggestions because the woman doesn't want to lead. She's trying to open up an opportunity for you to lead, and you either don't know your woman well enough to be able to lead her in a direction that makes her happy, or you're not willing to do that, which is what causes the problems. Where if you just confidently said, "All right, honey, we're going to Taco Bell," you know, even if she doesn't want Taco Bell, the fact that you did it confidently would then give her the opportunity to be like, well, okay, you know what? Maybe I didn't want Taco Bell. I wanted this. And then you can take that into consideration. But if you go, I don't know what to say. I have no idea what you would want. I don't know who you are. You're basically a stranger to me, is what your woman's hearing when you're saying things unconfidently. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I'm
I have a troll that I do for my wife, but go ahead.
Yeah, and however you've solved this in your relationship, I'm not saying it has to be the same for everybody, but like one way you should do it as a man is to just confidently give her an answer and then be willing to negotiate after that. But giving her the confident answer, most of the time she'll probably just go along with it unless that's, completely wrong somehow.
Yeah, you'll find out how strong her opinion is when you suggest things she doesn't want. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
but the other thing is like it's easier for a woman to tell you that she doesn't want that than to try to tell you what she does actually want. And so it's all part of the process. And one of the reasons why it's difficult today is because we're not confident the way that we used to be. It used to be that whatever the man said, that's what they were doing, regardless, even if the wife didn't want to do it at all, and she just had to deal with it, right? Today, I think we should be a little bit more willing to bend on, especially like just where we're having dinner, and try to fit her needs in more than like the typical 1950s, family might have. But it still takes the man being confident and leading to be successful in the first place.
yeah, they my like when I don't know how to explain it, but my wife definitely just likes when I just decide, and whether she knows it inherently or not, like when I lead her, she enjoys it. And then she'll definitely let me know if where I'm leading her she doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
Just be quick to respond to that as a man.
Yep.
Definitely if you're a Christian too, like that is your flesh. If your flesh is saying I don't want this, respond to it because you wouldn't say that to your own flesh like, I'm just gonna keep doing it. You're expressing
Yeah.
pain, but man, I'm just gonna keep doing it. So really quick, I just wanted to go into my little funny troll. So money's always been kind of tight for me and stuff, and so McDonald's having their two. I'm not a spokesperson for McDonald's, by the way, but
Not yet.
they had their like two McDoubles for $4 or whatever it is. So for a while they were like the cheapest thing on the block until like Wendy's did their like $6 biggie bag. Also not a spokesperson for Wendy's, but
Yet.
basically she got so sick of McDonald's because we had it so often. And then the other thing, the cheap fill up was Little Caesars. So when I'd be like, okay, what do you want to eat? And she'd say, I don't know. I'm like, okay, Little Caesars. And then I'd find out really quickly that she knew what she wanted. And so it was like, I just kept suggesting stuff I know she didn't want just to like kind of playfully mess with her and stuff. And then
Yeah.
the opinion came out very quick.
And
Why don't
and
we
the,
just go to Chick-fil-A then? I was like, okay.
and that's the other thing as men, one of the skills that I think that a lot of men don't have is how to be properly playful with your significant other. That was very evident in my parents' relationship. My dad was very playful with my mom, and they were always having fun together and joking around like that. And obviously, if your woman isn't responding well to that line that Austin did, you shouldn't do it, right? You should be doing what works for you.
If she gets
And
mad, try something else, right?
yeah, exactly, right? And so you found what works for you and her, and that's your job as a man too, is to poke and to prod and to find these different playful things that you can do to
What flavor of humor
mhm,
she responds to and stuff like that. Yeah.
to make those situations more fun. And so now instead of it being a problem every night, it's a playful, fun thing for us to figure out where we're going to go eat. And so that's your job as the man, is to turn potential problems into playful and fun experiences for the rest of your family. So you can do that with your wife, you can do that with your kids, and you can do that literally 100% of the time. The only thing that keeps you from doing it is your own ego and your own like desire to put in effort,
Confidence
because it's
and
effort. It's effort. Like, you coming up with these playful things is going to take energy and effort that you might not want to spend. But I'm just telling everybody it is worth it. It pays huge dividends.
yeah, and just a general thing of advice. I would just pick a random place for dinner, and if they say they don't want to go there, then just like, what do you want, and open it up there. But like that, your woman wants you to lead because she's a
Mm-hmm.
woman, and
Yep.
she wants you to be a man and lead her.
Mm-hmm. And that's how she's going to feel most comfortable, and then she's going to be able to be the best woman that she can be for you. And that's how the relationships are supposed to work. She's supposed to submit to you so you can be the best man for her, and you're supposed to, do the things that you need to do and for her to be the best man for her as well.
Yeah. All right. So let's move right on. So let's look at another one. And this is a huge one. I know you don't like our schools for exactly this reason. And it is knowing what to do with money, financial
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. Fathers have a big role to play here. And can you kind of talk a little bit about budgeting, just hard work ethic and financial management for us and why that's
Yeah.
important?
I mean, it's important for all the obvious reasons of that's how you put food on the table for your kids, but on a more long-term scale, how you go about doing that, how you handle your money, how you deal with money, how you interact with money, your relationship to it flavors a lot of the interactions that you have with people in general. And so,
Why is that?
just because it's so important, it's such a huge for a man,
Like if you really love money versus I don't really care too much about it, or like what do you mean by that?
yeah, so if you really love money and your focus is money, and you show that to your family, that money is more important to you than they are, okay, and then they're going to respond that way, and they're also going to start loving money in a similar way as well, because them acquiring
That's the
money
value that you
is
put
going
forward.
to, well, because they're going to start seeing it as something that they can do to try to be valuable to you, okay,
Yes,
so
that goes back to the everything you do becomes permissible to your
mhm.
family because you're the standard there.
Yes. And so if your only focus is money, 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 and that's the only way that you can be a benefit to the family, is if you provide money, that's not a good standard to set for your kids. Money is incredibly important. It is a vehicle that we can use to accomplish a lot of different things, and it's baseline needed for us to be able to survive in society today. We need a certain amount of money to have water. We need a certain amount of money to have food. We need a certain amount of money to have a roof over our heads. And so you should teach children that of the importance of money, but also put it in the right place as something that is a tool for us to use to ultimately glorify God, rather than an ends in and of itself. And so,
Yeah, because
yeah.
for say conversely, say your kids see you constantly putting your money in places that are like, I see this organization that helps kids, I give them some money, or I see this church doing this event that's fundraising for the homeless, I'm gonna give them some money. You know what I mean? Like where they see you, just where you put your money, it's gonna put it in your kid's head that I should also put my money there. Dad put his money into these places, I should do that too. Like, are you an investor? Do you kind of do things with your money there? Like it just like us, for example, your kid, if you had a son right now, would notice that a lot of times when you get money, you put it into your career with like podcasting, with your
Hmm.
equipment, and just different things like that. So they see dad, he doesn't just buy random stuff. He puts it into his everyday things, his car, his
Yep.
his clothes, his, the things that he needs to function essentially. And so I never saw dad messing around with his money. He just put it towards all of the stuff that he needed, and he always had nice stuff. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's gonna
Well,
kind of be something like that, right?
and then conversely, like, you can love money too much, and value it too much, to the point where you're sacrificing too much of your time. So, like, let's
I've
say
seen
that
that
I'm
happen, and
the
it's
CEO.
unfortunate.
If I'm the CEO of a company, by definition I am not spending enough time with my kids. There is not, like, Uh,
because you have to be there too much.
To a certain extent, like there may be a CEO of a smaller company that's doing it right, but my understanding is basically 100% of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 type companies, all of the biggest companies, they do not have a proper work life balance. They're not spending 40 hours a week at work and then coming home and being there and being present for their kids. At least that's not what
Yeah.
we see. Again, I'm not a CEO. I don't know any CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, but just knowing what the workload is for that kind of a job, I can't imagine that they're also properly showing up for their kids. And so,
And if you can, if you're a CEO and you're a great dad and you spend a lot of time with your kids, please drop
yeah,
that in the
please
comments or
drop it in the
something. Let us know
comments.
that
Send us a
how you
donation.
manage that.
We could use a donation. We'll talk. No, I'm just kidding. Um, you know, again, if you are a CEO and you are doing it properly, I applaud you. That's a
Tell us how
definitely.
you do it. Tell us how you
Yeah,
balance your time in your life.
we'll have you on the podcast. We'll talk to you. You're the expert there. But I think most of them aren't, and the reason is it's just hard. You know, it's so much time and effort that your kids need from you to be able to also have an entire, because really what it is for men these days is their work is an entirely separate family from their home family, and juggling
Yeah,
those
we should look into that.
responsibilities, and it's just tough juggling those responsibilities. And so what I'm saying
Yeah,
is that ultimately you need to show your kids that you're going to show up and be there for them, because you're showing them that you'll show up and be there for your work every single day. So it's just important for fathers to find the right balance to show up and to be there for their kids equally, not maybe not in time, but to show them that they're equally valued, that they get a shot at your time, right? So that's what's most important is money doesn't come before everything else. Your work doesn't come before everything else. Number one, God. So they need to see that you're showing up every single week at church, that you're a pillar in that community. That's the number one thing. If you're not doing that and work comes before your relationship with God, that's a major problem. And so you need to be valuing time spent with the community that God's provided for you. That needs to be number one, and then everything else flows from there. And if you put everything in its right proper place, money isn't going to be something that's revered. It's going to be something that's obtained to be used as a tool, and that's what you should be
that's what I was
passing on to
gonna
your kids.
say. It's a gift from God that's meant to be used as a tool to then bless your family. It's not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be something to for your pleasure that you just do. I mean, and that's where people end up using money for, and they find out that there's just emptiness on the other side of that. Oh, I've every weekend I've gone to the lake, or every weekend I've done some crazy expenditure, and then it's like a couple years of doing that, and you're just like, man, life is just not fun because you've done everything that's supposedly fun, and it's like you didn't invest in yourself or your family, and so it's completely like, I don't know, I total tangent, and that's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
Do you have some more questions for us, or
Yeah, I did,
more?
but really quick, I wanted to take like a 1 minute break. Just a really quick plug for the raffle. So,
Oh yeah.
how many subscribers do we have on YouTube? Are we at
So
30 now?
yes, we just got to 30 yesterday. So 3/5 of the way to
Sweet.
our 50 person giveaway number.
Yeah, so we are going to be giving away a shirt from my collection at Apostles Attic, and I'm even gonna say that if like say you win the raffle, but you want something that I don't have on my website, I'll just make it really quick. So basically, what I want you to do is comment on any of the videos and give me a question for the podcast, and we'll review it on the podcast and even mention your username as long as it's kind and respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody that submitted a question, by the time we hit 50, I'm just going to include everybody from every single video up until that point is going to be a submission, right? And I don't know what's going to happen if somebody wins and doesn't claim it, but we'll figure that out. Maybe we'll give it to somebody who wants it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But uh,
Or maybe we'll donate some money to a church or something. I don't know.
my plan is to for the very so this is okay, imagine this. I'm gonna have like a target, I'm gonna shoot it with an arrow with a bow, and I'm gonna write somebody's name in like a little like 1 by 3 section and write their name, start building around in a circle, and then just kind of like every time somebody submits, I'm just gonna keep making the circle wider and wider, and I'm gonna shoot an arrow at it. So basically, whatever name it pierces is gonna be the winner of that, and we can even live stream the shot. I used to teach archery for a good friend, and so I like doing archery. Ryan
Yep.
likes to do archery as well. Yeah, it'd be a fun thing to film. Again, when we get 50 YouTube subscribers, we're gonna go ahead and enter everybody who has submitted a question up until that point, and then we're gonna do an archery shot, and that's gonna be how we decide who the winner is. So, all right,
Awesome.
and then also, are you down to still talk about the safe haven law thing? We forgot about that.
I thought we were putting that off till next week, but we can talk about that now if you want. We only have about another 20 minutes, just so you know, before we
Okay.
get to our 2 hour mark.
We'll save that for next week then.
Okay.
Just to let our viewers know, it's basically a law that doesn't criminalize you giving your child to like a hospital or a fire station in the
Yep.
event that you don't want your child, like in an unwanted birth.
Yep.
So basically, we were going to talk about that next week and how that's a very good acceptable form of, we'll say, abortion, right?
Well,
And
so it's not an acceptable form of abortion. It's an acceptable alternative to.
that's what I meant to
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
I have
I
a
know.
hard time articulating my thoughts. My bad.
You're good.
Thank you for getting me
I knew what you
saved
meant.
by Ryan.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. I just wanted to be clear. And the other thing is for anybody, what we're talking about are safe haven laws, where you can go and drop your baby off at a safe place, hospital, fire station, those sorts of things, if you are in a situation where you find that you are a new mother that doesn't want your child. And what I want to say about this is there's a lot of misconceptions about adoption in this country. There's about 18,000 infants that are put up for adoption every single year in the United States. And what is absolutely astounding is
There are like 50,000 people line waiting to get
Yes.
infants right now.
So every single one of those babies has multiple families that want to adopt them, okay? And so, yes, there is a
awesome.
massive problem in our foster care system. That's a horrible situation. Whenever a child loses their parents, it's a tragedy. But the reasons why that there are problems with the foster care system has absolutely nothing to do with infant adoption. And so, I've known people in my life that actually have had to go to China to end up adopting children because there weren't any for them to adopt here in the United States. Okay, literally zero infants to adopt in the United States. And so
That's
so
amazing
if
that
you're
they were able to still do that, even though they
Yeah.
had to go to China. I'm glad China at least let that happen. That's cool.
Yeah. So what I want to say with that is, if you are a mother or you know a mother that is in a situation where she doesn't want her child, there is a family that wants to adopt that child. That child as an infant, a child as an infant will get adopted. That's just not even a thing in this country today in 2023. And
I would
so
even make a suggestion if you know a friend that is pregnant and doesn't want their baby, sponsor yourself an ultrasound. Take her somewhere to get an ultrasound, have her see her baby. And the 90-80% chance she goes, yes, I want this baby now.
for
That's what I would suggest.
for next week, I have some contacts. I know a pregnancy resource center that's
Nice.
local to me, and there's all sorts of resources for mothers who are pregnant that actually want to keep their child. So one of the
Nice.
cruel, evil, sick, twisted lies that of Planned Parenthood is their name. Okay, if you go into a Planned Parenthood, their goal is to rip your child out of you. That is the end goal of every visit of a pregnant woman to Planned Parenthood. They
They've
want
removed
nothing to
ultrasounds as,
do.
like a part of their procedures,
Yes,
yeah.
they don't have ultrasounds. They don't have any services for women that want to keep their child. The only planning that they're doing is to make you, in their opinion, not a parent. Okay,
When are we taking it out? That's what they're planning.
So again, I will have some pregnancy resource information for next week, hopefully. And
That sounds awesome. I'm glad we're gonna have that.
So we'll do that a
All
little bit
right.
more planned out.
I think that I covered a lot of my stuff. I think all of our new stuff that we brought to the podcast, the Restream IO, the text number. Again, if you see this text,
The
if
number
it's
is
audio too. Yeah, go ahead if it's audio. If you're hearing if you're not seeing any video, go for it.
Yes, the number is 833-262-6431. Again, you can reach us through text at 833-262-6431. You might be able to call that number, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. So give that a try if you want. And if that doesn't work, give us a text, and we're really excited to hear from you, to be able to pray for you, and be able to just kind of be here as a resource for you to answer your questions. So we'd really love to start incorporating questions that you have as a community into our podcast. That's ultimately what we want to do, is answer all of your guys' questions, because I know that there's a lot that you have. I know that Mike Winger could do a stream every single day and get 20 new questions from his community. And so that's kind of where I want to get to for us, is just we're the guys that you come to, you ask us questions, and then as best we can, we faithfully respond and give you an answer. That's our goal.
Yeah, and something I am remembering now that I forgot to do was the gospel message. Would you want to do it this week, or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, I think I've said it a couple times, actually. I've kind of tried to sprinkle it into the episode, but ultimately, what the gospel is that we are all sinners. We've all fallen short of the glory of God, and that in and of ourselves, we are incapable of attaining that glory or paying for those sins that we've committed. And so, because God is such a loving and merciful and kind God and our Creator, He has provided a way for His justice to be satisfied and for Him to be completely, perfectly merciful. And so, what He did is He sent His Son down to be born of a virgin, to live a completely normal and perfect human life where He was completely sinless, and to ultimately die on the cross as a substitution for our sins. So it should be us up on that cross, dying and paying for the price of our sins and ultimately suffering eternally in hell. But because Jesus Christ lived a perfect life, and because He was God, and because He was man as well, He was able to pay that price for us if we believe in Him and if we are adopted into His family. So I just pray that everybody that is listening to me, that you come to a knowledge and a faith in Jesus Christ, that you put your trust in Him, and that you call Him Lord, that you profess that with your mouth, and that you believe in your heart that He rose from the dead.
And all of that testimony is documented through the Gospels in the
Mm-hmm.
New Testament. So if you wanted to go and check that out, definitely the Word of God is it's very powerful, and it documents Jesus's whole life and ministry in the
Yep.
Gospels in the New Testament. All right, let's go ahead and keep going with a couple different questions.
Yeah, we got
All
about
right,
15
so
more minutes before 2 hours, just so you know.
one of the things I kind of talked about earlier, actually we'll do this one. The topic of resilience and perseverance, like your willpower, like don't give up, be a man, that fighting spirit. Fathers definitely instill resilience and perseverance in their children, teaching them to overcome obstacles and just develop in different ways. What do you have for us on that topic of fathers and their relationship with their son?
I'm sorry. I just got spaced out there for a second. I don't know what happened. What? Can you kind of restate that for me?
Yup. All right. So resilience and perseverance, and on that in that lens. So fathers instill like that fighting spirit, that be a man, like
Oh, okay. Yeah,
beat your
yeah,
chest.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fathers definitely instill that in their son, and this kind of ties into masculinity. You don't want a timid man. You want a man that's capable of protecting, like at complete, like if someone breaks into my house and is trying to wrestle me, I need to be able to overpower them and
Mm-hmm.
subdue them, right? And so that's just kind of like that's one thing. It's like protecting your family, but just resilience and perseverance, like what can you say about that, and how our fathers instill that in their
Yeah,
sons?
so I think the number one way that you can do that as a father is to go out and to do tough things. So for me and for my
Be a
dad,
man.
we love to go out into nature. He was there with me in scouts. We'd go out and we'd go do week-long backpacking trips in the Sierras, those sorts of things. Going out and doing tough things with your son is going to show him how to be tough and be strong through those situations. It's going to teach your son or your daughter that you can overcome, right? There's so many people today that just let their circumstances dictate how they live their life. What a man does is we rise above our circumstances. We
We
take
control
account
our environment. Yeah.
as best we can. Obviously, there's going to be things that are out of our control, but what you as a man and what you as a human being are supposed to do is you're supposed to look at that situation, see the opportunities that are presented in it, because that's the truth, is that in every situation, the good, the bad, and the ugly, there's opportunities that arise from that situation for you to turn that into something that you can learn from, that you can grow from, or best case scenario, that you actually end up benefiting from. And so you do that by actually going out and doing tough things and going out and accomplishing tasks, and going basically, and so
Work on
what
your car in front of your
exactly,
son.
that's what I was saying. Like, if you're a car guy, include your kid in repairing a car. Like, make that a project that you two do. If you own a home and you want to go and upgrade the sprinkler system, get that kid out there digging a ditch and helping find the sprinkler and replace it or
Gets
put
the
it in.
muscles from digging, then he gets the knowledge from all the pipes and all the how to do the
Well,
irrigation system, and yeah.
well, and one of the so specifically digging up a yard, one of the things that you learn really quick as you're digging up a front yard is you're gonna hit pipes you didn't know about, and they're gonna crack, and you're gonna have to get in there and you're gonna have to fix that mess that you just made because you were.
Flex Seal, brother. You just get Flex Seal. It solves every problem.
I but that's another thing is, like, that's a funny thing to say, but that's not the right solution. Okay,
I know.
as
I
good
know.
as good as Flex Seal is at temporarily fixing a problem, that's not the long term solution that you want for that pipe. If you want to fix
Until the
it
plumber gets
properly,
there.
well, that's the thing. Until the plumber gets there, or like out backyard irrigation, the PVC pipe, that's easy enough. Anybody can go down to Home Depot, and for $20 you get all the
Yeah.
tools that you need to be able to do it. But
It's when you strap the jackhammer into concrete. That's when it starts.
Yes.
Getting...
but what like I was saying, if you're out digging up your yard, you're going to hit a PVC pipe. It's going to crack. It's going to cause a huge mess of water and mud to just spray everywhere. That will happen, okay? And so by including your son in that, they're out there, they learned that there's going to be problems that arise in the things that we do. And what you then do is you don't just sit there and cry about it. You get up, you turn the water off at the main of the house, and you get to work
Repair the
fixing
pipe.
it, because everybody's going to
Yeah.
need to take a piss in 20 minutes. Okay? Like, so that's what you have to do as a man, is just put yourself in situations where things will go wrong, because we live in a fallen world. And what you're going to teach your son is how you overcome that problem correctly and righteously, and do it in a way that uplifts everybody and doesn't bring anybody down. Because a lot of men, just throughout history, but especially today, you encounter a tough situation, you encounter a difficult scenario, and you get
fold.
mad and angry, or you fold, or you handle it improperly. And really, if you were handling it properly, every single other person around you gets uplifted, despite the fact that you're going through something negative. Okay?
Because they see you handling your emotions, and they're like, okay, it inspires them to handle their emotions.
Mhm.
But if you just let it slip off the handle, then they're just going to be like, all right, cool, then I'm just going to let it slip off the handle. And this is with people who aren't your family, who aren't your
Mhm.
kids.
Yep.
So
And so that's one of the benefits that I had of having a father with a high degree of emotional intelligence and stability, is I never once saw him fly off the handle. We'd get into situations where literally, what I described, you're out digging in the front yard and you hit a PVC pipe, and he'd just go grab the tools in the garage and shut the water off, and we're in the mud fixing it, right? And that's just how you have to deal with life. And I've been in situations recently where I've had to fix things around the house, and I haven't had the right attitude or the right mentality around that, and it brings everybody else down. And so that's kind of a thing that I've been going through. And thinking about the example that my dad was for me, I just see how wrong I was to fall into that trap. And it's not about wallowing in that in the past, but fixing it and treating each situation in the future the way that it should be treated, and moving forward, right? That's the biggest thing for men. A lot of us want to focus on the ways that we've messed up in the past and how we've screwed it up, and those are things that we
Laugh at
should
it.
think about. But we ultimately should laugh about it, and we need to move on and figure out how we need to react correctly in the future, and ultimately that's going to uplift everybody around us. And that's your goal. If you're pointed at Christ, if you have the right focus, then every other person around you is going to be uplifted by the actions that you do, especially if they want to get on board with that same focus along with you. So
It's like
that's
when you drop a glass bowl, instead of just exploding and throwing it across the room because you're mad that you broke a glass bowl, you just kind of smile to yourself and go, "Wow, I can't really," and then you just kind of like laugh and minimize the situation and kind of just turn it into a humorous one, like
yep.
Animaclets, and then you just pick up the shards, and then your family sees Dad turned these moments where people get mad into like these light situations where he just kind
Hmm.
of laughed at it, and then that again steals this mannerism into your kids. When tough things happen, you kind of just laugh at it and make light of it, you know what I mean? You don't have
Yep.
to get all upset. But I
And
I fall victim to my flesh all the time, so I'm not perfect to my advice or suggestions, but
nobody is. And it, it's important to think about the ways that we have been deficient in the past and highlight them, acknowledge them, and move forward. That's ultimately what we all need to do as men, and of course women need to do that too. I just think it's a little bit harder for some men to do that with the lack of good male role models that we've had. There's very very few of them these days compared to what would have been in the past.
the one good way to humble yourself in that way is just like, are you perfect? No. So then what's like the thing you suck at the most? And then you're gonna have to think about this yourself. Rebuke yourself. Find the thing you suck at the most and just give it a little bit of work. And you just reflect on your character, and it'll just kind of help you with different things. But all right,
Hmm.
let's go to another thing. All right. So this is a kind of, we kind of just talked about it, but this one's going to be coping skills. Fathers have a definite big role in teaching their sons like how to cope with different things, like the loss of a loved one, when your car, when you crash a car and you lost that all that investment, that $10,000 $20,000 car, and now it's like a $5,000 check from the insurance company or whatever it is. So how can what does it look like when fathers help their sons learn coping skills?
Yeah, I think that kind of all gets rolled up into one. So, the similar way you cope with hitting that pipe is how you're going to kind of cope with a lot of bad news. And the first thing is to not just immediately break down, right? Like a lot of people want to just immediately break down and act emotionally and just stop what they're doing. Depending on the situation, that might be okay, but in a lot of situations, you actually need to know how to be calm in the face of these problems, right? So, the bowl, dropping a glass bowl and breaking the glass. It's not good for you to break down for 30 minutes after that happens and not pick up the glass because the dog might come walking through the room and get a piece of glass in its paw. Okay? And
Yeah.
so you need to figure out how to properly respond to these problems. And so you might not like that you just dropped this glass bowl. You might be embarrassed, but the first thing you need to do is rush over and grab the broom and start picking up the pieces so that other people don't get hurt. And that's true of all sorts of different scenarios, whether it be a physical bowl that you broke, whether it be you said something mean to somebody. If you said something mean to somebody and then you get emotional because you feel bad about what you said, that's just two people that are now inconsolable and upset, and it just leads to more problems. Where if you're aware of your emotions and the ways that you might react to a situation, and you say that thing, you can then just be quiet for a little bit, calm yourself down, and then get back to the situation and deal with it properly. So,
Okay. All right, and we have a time for about one more, and I'm gonna throw this to you, Ryan. We can go left or right here. So, would you want
hmm
to cover independence and autonomy, or mentorship and the importance of teaching other people something? And so, with mentorship, you can talk about, say, you have two sons, an older one and a younger one, and because the older one has been taught by the father, he learns how to teach because he's been taught, something like that. And then independence and autonomy and having agency and stuff like that. You can choose how you want to roll with that.
um, I'm just gonna kind of say that it's all kind of rolled up into one. So, we're not really taught anywhere that we're supposed to be independent. So we're supposed to be able to take care of ourselves, okay? But no one is truly independent of anyone else, okay? I need you to be able to do this podcast. I need other human beings in order to be able to do the job that I do. We all
We need
need
Jesus Christ to get to the Father.
Exactly, right? So in every scenario there's other people that we need to be dependent on. So there is no truly independent person except maybe a guy by themselves on a desert island, and even they're dependent on Christ for salvation, right? So there's no true independence. What it really is it's not being overly dependent on anything. And so having a wrong attitude towards something or a wrong attitude towards someone, depending on that too much for your own emotional stability, those sorts of things are issues. And so what we need to do is, as fathers and as men, is we need to show our family how to depend on other people properly and how they can depend on you properly. And so that's why it's important that men have good friendships with other men and other families, so you can see that family coming to you for help in their problems, you go to them for help in your problems, and everyone works together, not in a in a bad way. Obviously you shouldn't be depending on this other family for everything, but there are certain proper things to depend on other people for. And I think that in our society, a lot of especially masculine men are like, I need to do it on my own. I'm a big macho guy. I don't need anybody. And it's just like
Well, you can
everybody
delegate
needs
things to
somebody.
your family and stuff. Yeah.
And so but teaching kids the proper way to do it and not being a burden on people. That's the real thing that we need to be able to teach our children, is how not to be a burden. And
Yeah.
right,
What do
like,
you like? Kind of, can you stretch that out a bit? What does it mean to be a burden on somebody
so
else? Like,
what I was imagining as I was saying that was someone that always goes to some. Okay, earlier we talked about how my dad looked exactly like Ned Flanders.
okay,
Let's take a look at that actual relationship. So the problem with the Ned Flanders Homer Simpson relationship is Homer is 100% of a burden on Ned. Okay, and
'cause
so
he asks him for everything all
he
the time.
asks him for everything all the time and refuses to do anything in return. And there's a lot of people that are like that, where they ask for a lot of stuff and they return very little. And so I'm not saying that it needs to be one for one in all of your relationships. I don't keep a track record of everything that I've done for you, and I don't think you keep a track record of everything that you've done for me. And at the end of the week, we have to make sure that those are accounts are equal, and I've done the same number of things for you that you've done for
Oh
me.
no,
That would be ridiculous.
I don't like
But
relationships like that in general. Like,
no, of course not. That's a ridiculous version of a equal relationship. But what you want to do is be like, "Hey, Austin, can you help me with something?" And then whenever you say, "Hey, Ryan, can you help me with something?" we reciprocate and we help each other out. But it's not too much. And so that's why you need to be careful about what you're doing with other people, because your kids are going to be watching that. And so
yeah,
when you go and you act like a Homer with your Ned neighbor, okay, and you don't ever do anything in return for him, your kids are going to model that, and they're going to then go and abuse the other relationships in their lives in the same kind of ways, generally.
and not reciprocate that
Mm-hmm.
back and forth kind of tit for tat thing, or the quid pro quo, as far as like, hey, I have this tool you asked to borrow, and essentially, if you need something, I got you. I hope if I need something, you got me, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
we're not constantly asking each
Well,
other for things. It's only if we need to, like
and
something
that,
along those lines.
and that's why a properly functioning family and that is so important. So let's say that let's say that my neighbor has a jackhammer and I need to go borrow a jackhammer for a day, and I'm a complete dope. I just got done jackhammering all day and I returned it to the guy, but I forgot to thank him properly or whatever. If you have a wife that's properly doing her part, she's going to have baked a tray of cookies to bring over to their family and thank them for allowing us to borrow their jackhammer. And
And
so,
that small act of kindness is like, man, the Johnsons are so nice. Look at, they
mhm,
gave us cookies for asking to use our jackhammer. Like, that was really nice of them. Like, or a
yeah,
casserole or something. Like,
exactly. And so you don't
a
always
bunch
have to
cake.
be, and so you're not always going to be perfect in the way that you reciprocate these things with your neighbors, but what your children need to see is that someone in the family is taking care of those things, and that there isn't just a we take mentality. It's a we take and we give, and we try to spread the love and the care and the
Yeah,
community around. And so
yeah.
that's ultimately what, and it's so sad that we have to have these discussions like we do today, because it's so lacking in our society. We don't know our neighbors anymore. We don't like the Amish. We hear about barn raisings. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say a barn raising?
Yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah, they can knock one out in like 24 hours. It's
Well,
nuts.
but literally the whole community for free comes together and helps build a
Because
barn.
it's Ted's turn or
Hmm.
it's Ezekiel's turn, right?
Yes.
Like,
Well, no, it's not even that necessarily his turn. It's because his burned down yesterday. Literally, like
oh,
those
so they
sorts of
act like a
things.
body. That's
Yeah. So
awesome.
like
That's
Ted's,
awesome.
you know, Ted's mule kicked over the lantern and burned the barn down yesterday. So this weekend we got to go over and do a barn raising for him, or he's gonna have to keep the goats and the cows in his kitchen for another week, right?
Hey,
Like,
attention Christian church, don't let Amish put us to shame. All right, we need to step in when our Christian brothers and sisters have stuff going on like that.
and I think that a lot of churches do. I think that there's a lot more affluence in churches these days,
What
and
does that
so
mean?
the
I don't even know what that word
uh
means.
uh,
Not even playing.
prosperity.
Oh, okay.
They're richer. We're richer these days, and
Okay.
so because of our wealth, we don't all have to show up and physically help. We all give money to churches, and we kind of see things behind the scenes a lot more. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's a good or bad thing. I think that there's probably some scenarios where we need to show up physically to do things more often. Like for example, one of my old churches, we would go and they'd have a work day where the men would show up, and instead of paying a landscaping company to come through and trim all the trees, the men in the
The men would
church.
show up.
Mhm.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
super cool. And then they bring their sons, and then they
Yep.
get to work with their dads. That's so cool.
Exactly. And so even if you don't have a home, it's also a place where your kids can learn those basic skills of how to repair a sprinkler and how do you trim a tree and
Like if you live in
you
an
know.
apartment where there's like a
Hmm.
management landscaping company, you never have to deal with that problem. And
Yeah,
so
but your
then you can
kid
go to the church and mess with
yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. And so there are still things that we do that are like barn raisings, and there's probably more that we could look into. But we just don't see it as much anymore, and it's kind of more behind the scenes because a lot of it's just taken care with money. You know, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to have pastors. What I'm guessing happens in a lot of churches, mine included, probably, is it probably doesn't make sense to have a pastor burdened with having to coordinate a work day, and then it's just
That's
easier
why.
to pay a gardener $100 a month to come by and take care of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
so. I understand where churches go and how these things happen, but there's other ways that we can come together as a community and give our to do that. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, we're just over 2 hours now, and I think that pretty well answers the question. Unless you had some follow ups for me.
No, just gonna end plugs. So, go ahead and comment on any of the stream stuff or any of our YouTube videos to enter yourself into the raffle for the
Yes,
Apostles Attic T-shirt giveaway. Um, and
or
then my name's
text. Yep, sorry,
yeah, or
or
text.
text us at 833-262-6431. And who are you again?
My name is Austin. I've co-founded Apostles Attic, which is a Christ-centered clothing line, and then anything other than that, like social-wise, you'll just see me here on Faithful Dialogues, which we're pretty much on everything other, and then it's Faith Dialogues on Twitter.
Hmm.
And then what about you, Ryan?
Who did you co-found that with, Austin? I don't know if you've ever mentioned that.
It's my wife's guy.
Oh, your wife,
She
Sky.
So all of the graphics that you see, like the faithful dialogues up top with the cool fonts right here, the backgrounds, everything, like basically I do nothing other than tell her, hey, I need this done, and then she does it with her awesome magic and then gets it done for me. And that's so she is a very massive help to me. I can just delegate things to her and she takes care of them for me, and I don't have to get bogged down with that. So that's
Yeah,
super cool.
and I'm very thankful for the work that she's put in making the art and the graphics and everything else. And yeah, thanks a lot, Sky. You're a very much appreciated part of this podcast, even though you haven't actually been on it yet. And if you ever want to, you're more than welcome, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you want
But
to say hi? She just says no.
that's fine. She can do whatever she wants. Um, and my name's Ryan. I am my personal stuff can all be found at aiiw.org. I've been trying to spread the gospel online for about a year and a half now, and had a little bit of success in some different platforms. And I hope that you come join me and see some of the reaction videos that I make.
He's
Uh,
popping on Twitter or on TikTok.
Both actually, both now. I'm starting to pop off a little bit on both. So
Nice. God
praise
bless you,
God.
man. Yeah,
I
praise God.
yeah, I'm real thankful, and I hope that there's people coming to Christ because of me showing up. That's all I can ask for, right?
Yeah, and in closing, once again, we believe that God created everything, spoke to human beings through his word, and that he stepped into his creation as the person Jesus Christ, allowed his life to be a sacrifice on the cross, that should we believe in Jesus Christ and have faith in him, that we shouldn't perish, as the Bible puts it, but have eternal life. And that basically means that when we die, we're not going to be separated from him. And so that's a lot of Christianese there. But if you put your faith in Jesus, you go to heaven, is kind of what I'm saying here. So.
Amen. All right, everybody. I hope that you have a good week. I think that we're looking at switching the days to be discussed to Wednesday. Is that where we landed?
Yeah, we're gonna for now, with my job situation, they're gonna want me to be on a day shift pretty soon, so that might change, but then we might also just figure that out. But for now, we're gonna try to aim for Wednesdays, so you're most likely gonna see something either Saturday, Sunday, and then definitely Wednesday. So that's kind
Okay,
of what we're looking at right now. You can
perfect.
expect us on Wednesday or Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, so I hope that that you enjoy us everywhere. We're everywhere that podcasts are. We're YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all over the place. So thanks for joining us, and I hope that you have a wonderful week.